Hey, what do you say? This is Boss and Men Speaking Out, and I am got Mr. Madison here, Mr. Joe Madison at that. Joe, you lucked out. Nobody's looking yet, so it's all good. You're
That
all
was
good.
close.
We
That was
got
close.
two viewers now, right? They're starting to populate. They're starting to populate. But I
Yeah.
wanted to thank you, Mr. Joe Madison. This is our episode 89 of Men Speaking Out, and it is an honor and a privilege, my friend, to talk to you today about a controversial subject. I was kind of when we spoke a few weeks ago, I was like, a little. I welcomed the conversation. Number one, I welcomed it, but I was like, okay, I've never went this deep on this podcast with any of my subject matter, and I am very, very, very fortunate and blessed to have Mr. Joe Madison of all names.
We're gonna get into that part, right?
Yeah, Mr. Joe Madison of all names, who's actually joining me today in this Men Speaking Out. And Joe, I want to tell the listeners a little bit about you, right? So if you don't mind, let me give you the grand introduction, my friend. Yeah, you and I are gonna be connected, you and me. All
I
right.
like
So
it. Come on.
yeah, so basically, this episode 89. We are talking to Mr. Joe Madison, the executive director of Demand Disruption, and the title of the podcast is called "Preventing Human Trafficking and Combating Porn Addiction." So let me tell you a bit about Mr. Madison and his credentials. Right, Joe Madison, a Houston native and father of three, left a 25-year career in oil and gas in 2016 to volunteer against human trafficking. Over the past decade, he has worked with law enforcement, supported survivors, and studied the dynamics of exploitation. He now leads Demand Disruption, a nonprofit targeting demand for commercial sex by addressing buyer motivated and access. The organization has engaged in over 1,000 men arrested for solicitation of prostitution, emphasizing the need for safe spaces where men can openly discuss their influences and experiences. Madison believes that preventing future buyers starts with honest conversations about culture and upbringing. There we go. How'd I do?
Hey, you nailed it. You nailed it. I can't wait to dig in, man. Let's go.
There you go. All right, Mr. Madison. Let's talk a little bit about, I know what I read, I know what I shared. My thought process is you tell me why you're here. You tell me why you're doing this.
Whew. I get that question a lot, and I usually give the same answer. I was thinking about this today, and while that answer is good, and I'll give a part of it, I was really doing some inventory. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And the truth of the matter is, Jamil, it kind of boils down to being called, honestly, as a father, as a husband, as a man who feels like he's tried in his life and failed at times, but tried his best to keep up this mindset of my own identity and integrity. Um, I saw something in our culture that I'd never seen before. And I grew up in the hood. I grew up in a bad neighborhood. Like I knew about crime. I mean, I've experienced it. I did not know about trafficking. And some people who had done missionary work were talking to me about it. And they said, yeah, we did some missionary work for anti-trafficking work. And I was like, wow, what's that like? Because they were talking about doing it in Southeast Asia. I said, it's incredible that, things like that still happen in our world, even in a country like Asia. He said, they're like, what do you mean? It's happening about 20 minutes down the road. I can show you a place.
Wow.
And that began just this awakening for me. When you first learn about trafficking or you see it on the news, which is so prominent now, right? This is 10 years ago. It just stayed with me. I was like, that can't be true. But what I did professionally was I understood sales models. I understood capital projects. I understood how something gets from here to the market to sold, somebody profits, and it all starts again. And I couldn't reconcile what I saw in terms of similarities in trafficking. It is a sales cycle, and it ate at me. And honestly, my faith was also like, what are you going to do about it? And so for about 3 days, there's a quote. I'll never forget this quote. I saw it, and it's from a guy named William Wilberforce. 200 years ago, he was an abolitionist in England. And it said, you can choose to look the other way, but you can never again say you didn't know. And when you carry a thought like that and you do know, then you got two choices: duck your head or get to work. And so my wife and I started to get to work, and that began a volunteer experience that lit a fire that became me telling her one day, I think I'm supposed to quit my career. And I don't deserve the woman I got, but she looks at me and says, what do you mean? And I said, I think I'm supposed to do this full time. I need to volunteer, understand this model so we can do something about it. And she said, okay, I'll go back to work. And that was
Wow.
it. And that was the beginning of it.
Wow. So you stepped out on faith.
Oh
You stepped
man,
out on purely
that is
faith.
a good. I would have saved us so much time, but I just said that because that is exactly what it was.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a saying. Dr. Martin Luther King, God rest his soul, of course, just coincidental.
Amen.
We just celebrated his birthday. He said the two most dangerous characteristics a person can have. Number
Mm,
one is to be sincerely ignorant, and number two is to be consciously stupid. Now,
mm,
sincerely ignorance you can deal with, right? You just don't know. You just don't know. But to be
yeah,
consciously stupid, that's dangerous. That means you know and you still do,
yeah.
right?
That's so powerful because one of the things that we talk about in one of our programs is these things thrive because there are the ignorant who don't know yet, and there are the willful ignorant who know but do it anyway and look for ways to exploit it. And
Mhm.
so if we understand that somebody doesn't know, it's our job to be caretakers and bring them up to speed on that knowledge. But once you know, you own that. And then from there, you own the responsibilities. You're either going to be part of the problem or you're going to be part of the solution.
Wow, wow. And I also want to mention to the listeners too as well, Joe, you got your own podcast, right? It's called the Demand Disruption Podcast.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure we give you a plug. You've been doing this for 10 years. You got a big event going on January 31st called the Ripple Effect, I believe. I'm saying that
Yes,
right, right?
that's right. You got
And
it.
I love the love, disrupt, defend, right? I love that, right? I said I did my homework too.
That's the imperative. I'm like, he's killing it. You don't even need me, do you?
Yeah. Now I did my homework too, so I just want to make sure that we do share love, and of course, obviously, once the podcast is over, when we post it online, we'll just share your URL, we'll share your podcast, we'll share your event. We're going to show you the love that you give us today, because men
Hmm.
speaking out, where we talk to reveal, not to conceal. And today we're about to talk to reveal, my friend. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
I
Yeah,
love that. And that's
yeah.
one reason that we really wanted to be a part of this conversation with men speaking out, because we're going to get in this today and we're going to go layers deeper probably than I've ever gone on a podcast, because the forum here, yes, we're talking about trafficking, but Jamil, trafficking is an outcome. It's a result. It's not a
Hmm.
cause. The
Hmm.
cause are all these contributing factors that men, women, kids are experiencing through a timeline every day, whether it ever becomes trafficking or maybe it's just, and I say just, um, uh, teen dating violence, which is on an incredible upswing. Maybe it's domestic violence. Maybe it manifests in different ways. Teen depression for kids that are in high school and college because of pornography and other consumptions. These
Yes.
things are all very real for us. Where trafficking can sound so abstract. So I want to make sure we're blending the two very early on, because we are going to get down into that love, disrupt, defend part of it. Those are our three words, are an
Mhm.
imperative for us to actually make a difference.
So let's talk about this for a second, Joe. Right? I mean, I understand that people come from broken homes, and some come from real successful homes, but
Sure.
at the end of the day, they end up somewhere in the same space,
Hmm.
right? So I mean, does it start with the love not being received as a youth, and you're looking outside and someone saying, "Hey, I can show you love, but let me put you on a plane and go do a dance for me over there, and go do
Hmm.
this over there," and they see the immediate gratification, but now they find themselves locked in and consumed with that lifestyle that they never wanted in the first place.
Yeah, you touched on a lot of the key points in there, and it's hard to sometimes unweave this ball of
Mhm.
conflict, exploitation, consumption. But when we start to really understand this, I can say with absolute certainty that social class is definitely going to it's going to change the frequency within which somebody finds himself in a vulnerable position. There are cultures, there are tiers in our society, there's race, there's social economic. All of those things are real factors. I always say that first because we can't just glaze over that. But it does not matter what layer of society you're in, 1%, 10%, 30%, 99%. You absolutely are going to be experiencing contributing factors that could lead to that type of exploitation. And so one of the parts of your question was, how do we really quantify how this happens to
Right.
somebody?
Exactly.
If I go into the suburbs, right, where it's medium to medium high income, houses established, generational, not wealth, but security, and I talk about trafficking, And then I go to a place like where I grew up in the hood. We're below, not quite the poverty line, but we're definitely low income, low and
Mhm.
middle income. Um, and I have the same conversation, Jamil. I'm not prepared, and I have not really honored the right that I have to be there by first talking about the things in that community and understanding those from the community members to make this relative. So, for example, I was working with one church, and they were right near Third Ward and then Sunnyside in Houston. That's a low income area,
Yeah.
historic but low income. When I go into a church and I'm talking to the group there, I'm looking on the walls as we're walking into the auditorium, and I'm seeing um, single parent household assistance. I'm seeing call this for food insecurity. I'm seeing teen pregnancy hotlines. That tells me a lot. And if I go in there with my little script and I start running off what it is about
Right.
trafficking and all this, man, I'm not honoring the people in that room, whether it's the suburbs or whether it's the hood or whether it's a penthouse. I'm not really honoring the audience because I haven't accepted and understood enough about what is the daily threat they
Right.
face. What is the part of their life that is uncertain? And if we understand that, the common thread is vulnerability, whatever that is.
Mhm.
If I'm a kid whose parents make a lot of money, we got two incomes and we're rich, but we don't ever have conversations about integrity. Or I'm a young man and I don't see it modeled in my own house what it is to be honest, to have empathy and vulnerability, also to do what you say you're going to do, right? To
Right.
be a man in all the best ways. I'm just left with my smartphone, figure it out. That's all right. We've given them everything. That's vulnerability. And a lot of people aren't ready to hear that. But the truth is, the vulnerability is that they are exposed to things
Mhm.
that then create some sort of reward system, whether it's likes on social media, whether it's messaging with a stranger that has told you they're your friend and they're grooming you and you don't know it, whether
Right.
you're standing in a party and somebody hands you a drink and it's like, you're cool, man, we should hang out. Next thing you know, they're inviting another party, and you start to get this separation between your family and yourself.
Mhm.
That's grooming. There are all these ways this can happen. I know that was a long answer,
No, no,
but
it's a good answer. It's a good
there's
answer
pieces
because
of it, right?
I thought
It
about
affects us all.
yeah, that's what I wanted. And I thought about dopamine, right? It's like the likes, right? People want many likes and double click. Oh, I got 100 likes. Oh, I got 1,000 likes. Oh, I went viral, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's in the virtual world. So let's pause there for a second. The
yeah.
virtual world right now, there in Instagram and certain websites and Facebook and these different Patreon or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Porn is there. It's
Yeah,
just at the fingertips, you
yeah,
know. So I
yeah.
worry. I'm just like, I got a grandson, and I'm like, we're gonna get him a cell phone. No, you're not. You don't need
Yeah.
one. You're gonna get my can in the string. You can
Yeah.
come that way. And it's like
Ooh.
because it's at his fingertips.
Mhm.
It's at her fingertips. And folks just put the kids on the phone and let them go. And you don't know what they're looking at because guess what? You never put parental controls on them. Number
Yeah.
two, the phone is pacifying them. Online is
Mhm.
so what are they really looking at? Who are they really talking to? True story. I'll share with you. I got 4 daughters,
Okay.
right? They're all grown now.
God bless you. Let's pray for you right now. 4 daughters. Woo.
4 daughters. And I remember back in America Online days, back in the late 90s, right? Now, one of my children at that time, I think she was like maybe 8 or 9, and
Yeah.
she had a computer in her room. I said, I trust her enough, right? With the big Sims world, right? The kids are building houses and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
building
Yeah.
neighborhoods, right? The Sims world. And then she got into a chat room.
Mm.
And then I looked up and I said, well, what are you doing? She said, oh, Dad, we're just talking about, Pokemon and, in this chat room, it's like 40, 50 people. And so
Mm.
I had her stop. I said, stop. I said, sweetheart, look around you. I said, can you fit 40 people in here? She's like, no, Dad, this is my bedroom. I can fit in 40. Like I'm looking at me like a deer in headlights. I
Yeah.
said, well, guess what? On that computer, that's what you're doing. You're
Mm.
letting them into this private space. You're letting them into this space. You just put 40 people in this room and you didn't even know it.
Mm.
So we're gonna kill that noise right
Yeah.
away. Right. And I'm in IT. I'm
Yeah.
an IT director. I'm in IT. I'm like, nope, firewalls. I'll be blocking that, right?
How
So
old was your daughter at this time?
right now she is 30. The one I'm talking about, she is 30. She just turned 32.
And so this was AOL. Then you're talking probably 25. So was she like 7, 8, 9 years old then? How old was
Yeah,
she?
yeah.
Man. So one of the things that I love that you did And as parents, this is something we talk about in our workshops. We've got a workshop called Defend Home.
Mhm.
We want people to be equipped and not necessarily come in and parent the way we were parented. Like generations change, some overcorrect, some don't correct at all, some undercorrect.
Mhm.
But what I love about your interaction with her was you gave her a practical example she could understand. Honey,
Mhm.
do you know 40 people that you would let into your bedroom? You even know that many people. Well, can you fit 40 people in here? You're making it practical. You're helping her understand. Yeah, I never really thought of it that way, because that is what online is. It is a simulated reality. But as each generation goes, and we hand them that phone when they're 4 because they're crying and we don't want to be embarrassed in a restaurant, so
Yep.
you can get on the phone. What we don't realize is we're conditioning, and that's not always a bad thing, as long as you're able to have a conversation and say, this is just like hand you car keys. You need to be trained before you do it. We need to have security measures. But beyond that, you always have to be looking out, just like when you're driving. There
That's
are
right.
ways to really bring a child along to understand that, because there is no before and after. There has never been a world with no internet to them. There has never been a world with no
Right.
smartphone. And
Right.
here's something that I tell all the parents that I talk to, because they say, well, I'm right there. And I hand them the phone. Am I being a bad parent? I said, no, not at all. And don't hear any of this as any sort of shame or condemnation. This is an opportunity to rethink things, because you're handing them the phone and you're going to a safe website, a child website. However, that's on the internet, and usually it's an extension of some social media or other game that you maybe downloaded.
Mhm.
Well, your phone's usage, your adult content, even if it's not pornography, but just that you are an older person and that phone knows you and your profile knows you as a 50-year-old man or a 30-year-old man, you're
Right.
going to get marketing to a 30-year-old man, a 40-year-old man. And ask yourself, I've done this exercise with people who mentor children, mentor boys. I said, ask them, you do a test with them. You meet with them once a week, right? Yep. Okay. Between this time and the next time you meet, ask them to count how many times they see something that they did not search for, that was somehow sexually or suggestively sent to them, or is
Correct.
a commercial or a pop-up.
Right.
I'm getting guys that are like, I never even considered that. And I tell them to do it too. These guys are saying, as an adult, I'm seeing 60 a day. I'm seeing 40 a day. I'm seeing even
Wow.
15 a day. If you had temptation 15 times a day, how many days are you going to be perfect? What
Never.
what and we're men speaking out, right? This is
That's right.
that's why I want to be on this podcast, is because if you're listening to this and you're a man, you are going to be targeted. Don't worry about that algorithm. The algorithm is old news. It doesn't work like that anymore. You're a man. You use your phone for everything.
That's
And so
right.
if you're on social media, like I scrolled through and we had a post one time, Jamil, and it was, I said, wait a second, let me go back. So I scrolled back and I just screen recorded. It was a roofing repair
Mhm.
company because we had to get our roof repaired. The next thing was cat videos. I got 2 cats. I'm fine with it. I love them. They're my cats. They're my
Right.
baby. They're my grandcats, because my kids are slacking. They haven't got any
There
grandkids
you
yet.
go. Your grandcats. All
I got
right.
to use them. So it's videos. It's this stuff. Kind of embedded in there was an AI advertisement for an AI girlfriend that was the most animated, suggestive, sexual thing. And so
Wow.
we screen recorded that and we put it on our social media and said, it's not about your algorithm, it's about theirs. They know that you're a man. They know that you're 30, 40, 50. And you keep hearing about this male loneliness like it's an epidemic, and they keep saying that. Well, that's an effect. That's not a cause. The cause is the separation. The cause is the distraction and temptation. And so as men, when we have accountability and we're able to talk to other men about this and say, man, look what I see. Look at this. Like for a second there, I'm tempted to click on that. But I know that leads nowhere good. And I just wanted to have somebody in accountability that I could tell that to. Adults have that. Kids have not gotten to that point yet. But if we don't show them that accountability, we don't mirror that accountability, how can we expect them to follow it?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's interesting too that if we think about the whole trafficking right situation. Number one, I am supportive of prevention. Number one, men speaking out does not support that in any capacity. I want to make sure the listeners understand that we are here to help you fight your cause, of course, with prevention of trafficking and so forth. But I want to kind of like tie it into like within the family itself, right? There's a lot of sick people out here in this world. There's a
Mm,
lot of sick individuals. Let's call it what it is. Like I said, talking to reveal, not to conceal. And you have people who will actually lend their children out,
Mm.
right, to a
Yeah.
sicko, right, person.
Familial trafficking. Yeah.
And whether it's, oh yeah, you can take my daughter out, or you can do this, or my son wouldn't mind. And you're inviting that toxic, that cancerous, footprint to
Mhm.
be a part of their lives. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's self-inflicted, right? Because it comes from within the four walls of their own home.
Oftentimes, children that are abused by a family friend or a family member, and the end result here isn't, like you said, it's to reveal, not conceal. The end result is not to make everybody paranoid. The end result is to just understand the world around you can be a wonderful, terrible thing. We know this fundamentally. It can be great. It can also be dangerous. But the cautionary tale is this: as parents, we're always teaching, whether we mean to or not.
Mhm.
If I'm watching something or I'm doing something and I just say this is for adults, it's okay. Well, what's a kid want to do? When you were 12, did you want to drive a car? Did you want to be an adult? Did you want to
Sure.
go? Of course you
Absolutely.
did. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And now they've got software that they can go take their own picture, upload it. This is what I look like as an adult, with frightening accuracy. Well, what are they doing? They're projecting. They're trying to understand what is it to be an adult. Well, this is not that big a deal. And so now they're consuming things. You wouldn't leave the liquor cabinet unlocked, and you wouldn't put your liquor down next to them. Say, you thirsty? Go ahead. We
Yeah.
have got to imagine the safeguards that are necessary. And we can do that in the healthiest way possible. And that's really where we have an opportunity. Trafficking exists because men buy sex. I mean, when sex is purchased, it's
Yeah.
between 96 and 98% men is what the statistics are.
Hmm.
It's less about stats with me and it's more about the overwhelming majority.
Hmm.
Those men who are buying sex, before I got into this work, Jamil, I thought they're the monsters, they're these predators, there's just this terrible. We have, as you mentioned in the bio, we've sat with over 1,000 men in handcuffs at the point of arrest. We come across monsters. There's no question. I
Right.
could tell you some awful stories. The majority of the men are somebody I would see at work, somebody I sit next to at church. We don't want to hear that. I had a guy come on one time, and he was a friend of a friend, and I didn't know his name really. And as soon as the screen came up, we do a virtual classroom as part of his court. His court sentencing was to go through a rehabilitation program. We've got one of the most effective ones. It's called the Bridge Method, and we have a orientation class. That screen popped up, and I had to put the poker face on because I knew exactly who this person was.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
know he had 2 daughters and 2 boys. And I know that this guy was, by all intents and purposes, a good dad, playful. He was always, at the family parties, engaged. I never really got any question about. We live in a culture that will tell you, what's the big deal? You're a man. Softcore pornography. I've got something called the escalation dynamic, and I'm going to take you through it real quick. Softcore pornography to hardcore pornography. Well, why am I going to this right away? Well, stay with me on this.
Okay.
We're on site. A man's arrested. I'm talking to him. I'm taking him through all this, offering him help. He's taking it or he's not, but we're following up with him in 2 days. He goes and gets in the van. The next guy comes up, this is a true story. And he says, hey, I heard what you told the other guy. Look, I appreciate what y'all doing, but nothing wrong with me. I'm just a single guy that got caught. And I'm not broken. And I told him, and I think this was God, because Joe Madison from the hood would have told him something different.
Oh yeah.
I told him I would never presume to tell you you're broken and judge you. Can we just talk about what it's like to be a man in our culture? And that began a conversation that later I sat in my truck for, it had to be 20 minutes, and I was just like, what happened? What just happened? Because I've had this conversation so many times, but as I'm talking to this man, I started with, whenever I started volunteering, I didn't realize that pornography, 90% of what's considered softcore pornography by the FCC, that's like HBO After Dark and things that, men
Yeah.
typically
Yeah.
you'll
Real
see on
sex,
cable or
right?
whatever.
Yeah. All that stuff.
Those
Back
scrambled channels back in the
yeah.
day when we were older.
On TV. Yeah. I remember
Yeah,
that. Trying
I
to
can hear
tune
the
in.
audio, but I can't see anything.
Yeah.
But if you click off and click back, like I got the technique down. When we were kids, we had to get on the cable box and switch them.
Right. Right.
That softcore pornography, most of that has violence or degradation, verbal or physical, some physical abuse toward women, and And one of the first things I learned was, well, why is that? Well, it's because it's coupling two parts of the brain that are being conditioned to combine aggression and sex. And with men, with anyone really, but especially men's brains, aggression and sex, when combined, is highly addictive. If not addictive, compulsive. If not compulsive, it will stay with you and you'll come back for more.
Mhm.
That is a model to get viewership up. And so we go from softcore to hardcore pornography. And let's just be real. If you're watching this and you have never seen pornography, I mean it. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. For the other 99.9% of the men who've seen it, whether they sought it out or didn't, hardcore pornography is abuse. It is not a mutually engaging,
Right.
loving engagement. It's not. And it is designed for that combination of aggression, power dominance, and sex and graphic sexuality. Because why? You'll come back for more. Now you're a repeat customer.
Mhm.
Well, for some, that's enough to see it. So this is the first part of the escalation dynamic, the stair step. So still talking to this guy, right? And I said, but for some, that's not enough. So let's go up to the next stair step. It's strip clubs and it's webcams.
Mhm.
And somebody stopped me one time telling a story, and he said, "Webcam." I said, "Yeah, let me take you here and let you
Yeah.
know what the porn industry wants to do. They want to take it from you in a video, the first two stair steps, to you in a person. Oh, this person, it's a video, but no, it's a real person, and I can call the shots, and they have to do what I say. And so I'm getting this connection, this simulated sexual experience, but I'm doing so with this justification, like, well, it's not really cheating, or it's not
Right.
really, and
Right.
it's unfair.
There. Right. Yeah.
You, there's always that layer as a consumer for justification, so that I will indulge. Strip club, same thing. And again, it's not judgment. Man, people have grown up, their uncles, rite of passage. Come on, I'll take you to strip club. You see what a woman looks like. It's this rite of passage, especially in certain cultures. When we stop and think about it, we've got to apply some back to that ignorance. Is it willful, or is it just accidental ignorance or genuine
Right.
ignorance? If you take just 1 second and talk to an expert in this industry, molestation, alcohol abuse, and drug abuse are all throughout this industry, by and large, part of that dancer's story, part of that woman's story.
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
is a measure of vulnerability that was exploited. And while we feel like it's empowering, she just okay with her body, she makes a lot of money. We're applying these measures that make it okay for us to consume it. And now we're back to justification on that stair step. And so, okay, I've seen it. Back up to the stair step. We're going a little higher now. I'm escalating. I'm kind of engaged with it, but for some, that's not enough. I want to experience it. And
Right.
so on those same porn sites, you can click here, video, watch it. Now it pops up a webcam. No, meet lonely girls. That meet lonely girls or meet single moms or have sex for free, whatever. You click on that, you're going to an escort site. That's a digital pimp. That just converted you into the world of prostitution and trafficking. People don't realize that. They're like, well, it can't be because it's online. How would they let this happen? Don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is absolutely a
Yeah.
conduit to it. And
Yeah.
so you can find it there, or even strip clubs or massage parlors. So that stair step takes people to buying. I really took a long time on that, and I appreciate your indulgence because it's not about the monster predator that's out there looking. It is about the person who's on that escalation. And after you condition for a while, well, that's not really enough. I get a little greedy. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? All the way up to this line where it's legal. I mean, a massage is legal until you get that massage. And
Exactly.
that's not that much of a conversion if you've just consumed sex all the way up that escalation to that point. And so now I'm buying sex, but I've justified it to this point. What's the difference? Does
So
that
let's
make
think.
sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And you make me think about the word toxic masculinity, right? Boys will be boys.
Mm-hmm.
We hear that all the time, right? So, and also too, I've heard phrases like we use what you get, we use what you got to get what you want,
Yeah.
and things of that nature. So if you sit and think about it, I was looking at some data. I'm a data guy, I'm an IT, so I'm a data guy, right? So I was looking at some data and it was like, and this is according to Homeland Security. You probably already know these numbers, but I'm gonna share them. And this is data from May 2025. It says that 78% with sex trafficking, 78% are women and girls, and 22% are men and boys. Mind blowing. Mind blowing. 92% are adults and 8% are children. These are US numbers, right?
8% of millions of people is a
Millions of
a
people,
lot of
millions
kids.
of people. It's
Yeah.
insane. That's insane to me. And so
Yeah.
when you sit and look at the data and you think about how do we get here? What are we doing? Why are we supporting this behavior? Children are children. They should be we should be nourishing them and teaching them and helping them grow and to develop to be great humans, not
That's right.
people, but humans. What are humans? Humans are humane. They have a sense of humanity, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's what we should be doing. However, like you just said a second ago on this actual the webcam thing, hey, I can make some quick money. I can get me an
Mhm.
OnlyFans page.
Yeah.
It becomes a lucrative business in that space, and then
Yeah.
before you know it, you look up, they're empty, the souls are drained, and your information is all over, plastered all over the web.
And it's forever.
And it's
I,
forever.
it's sad. How can there be that many children being abused? We would never tolerate that, right? Now ask yourself, what's been the number one story of Trump's presidency? This is not a political statement. Stay with us on our task here, no matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican. What has been the number one story? The Epstein files, right?
That's right.
What would have happened 20 years ago if you were a politician or a public figure and you were somehow linked to the possibility of abusing children sexually? You're done. That's
That's
it.
right. It's a
You're
wrap.
done. And right or wrong, your due process is not going to go the same way it would with some other more palatable thing. But we use it as leverage for political arguments. We use it as a punchline. We're doing memes and creating impersonations, joking about this. It's because there has been this gradual normalcy of absolutely abnormal and abhorrent things.
Mhm.
And what did we really just talk about on the escalation dynamic? We talked about a gradual normalization of things that you would normally never be a part of, but you gradually get there.
Right.
That same internet that pops up things. I just did we had a team meeting. Something came up, and I was being very unproductive because I just ranted for a while. I said, guys, I got to get this out of my body, my brain. I gotta explain it. So I get up on the dry erase board, and our creative director, Krista, who you had the
Yeah.
pleasure of meeting, she's incredible. She starts rolling, and she created a video out of it that's on our demand disruption webpage. On you can go to, well, actually, it's on our social media. You can go to Facebook, you can find us demand disruption on
Mhm.
there or on Instagram. And it's me bringing people through an understanding. You said OnlyFans. Let's just use them as an example.
Mhm.
I wrote this a week ago and a week and a half ago, and here we are talking about it. There's I'm not going to say her name, but she's all over the news. She made $2.9 million on her 18th birthday on OnlyFans.
Wow.
So what did I just say? Money, right?
Money.
Okay,
Right.
it's fine. It's none of our business, right? She's 18. She's an adult.
Mhm.
What did I say next? 18th birthday. How did she get a page, a representation, a way to have this monetized? How did all that happen the day of her 18th birthday? It didn't. Somebody had been talking to her as a minor.
That's right.
And it's bringing her along to say, you're going to be rich. Why? Because she saw somebody else do it. And because we put this false legitimacy on a website like OnlyFans or a website like some others. If you go to, we've got a podcast, the Demand Disruption Podcast, you were gracious enough to mention. Last year, we interviewed Victoria Sims, and she did an incredible job of explaining what an OnlyFans recruiter's job is.
I saw that on your podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that
If you watch it, you will be saddened, shocked, and enlightened all at once, and probably have to take a nap afterwards. We have real conversations, not about shock and awe. It's about, wait a second, let's break this down. So I'm on this dry erase board talking about this girl who's 18 making all this money, when the majority of the girls who are exploiting themselves or being exploited or groomed on OnlyFans, they think they're going to go and do a strip tease or something, or they're going to do some sexual act, but I'm not doing that. But then they're pressured into doing that because that's what gets the viewers and that's what gets the money.
exactly.
And most of them don't make anything, but they just exploited themselves thinking they were going to. And who are the people that are waiting for them to turn 18 so they can, where's that word? Justification. So they can justify watching that and justify seeing that. Well, she's 18, she's an adult, it's none of my business. When
Yeah.
she wants to do that, well, who am I? Well, I'm just helping her out. That's
Yeah.
the same thing a buyer says about buying sex, and he's fueling trafficking, but he doesn't think about that. He thinks about her choice. I know what I want. He knows what she wants. I mean, what am I going to take a woman to dinner, buy her dinner, and hopefully we have sex? What's the difference? There's
Exactly.
justification, and we do it in a way that is not true to who we are as people. If we
You,
saw somebody else doing that, we would absolutely put a stop to it because that's trafficking, it's exploitation, it's all these terrible things. But we can get on that escalation in a way that absolutely discredits who we are called to be as men.
you know what, Joe? I real quickly for the listeners, I am talking to Joe Madison, the executive director of Demand Disruption, and we are talking today about preventing human trafficking on men speaking out and combating porn addiction. Joe, you, yeah, we can talk about this all day long. This subject we can go deep in that rabbit hole. I kind of want to pivot into it a little bit because there's so much to share, and I'm going to once again share your website and your YouTube, not YouTube channel, sorry, your podcast channel. I want to make sure the whole listeners is heard. This is heard all over the world. So all
Yeah.
over the world, they're gonna know about Joe Madison, right?
The other Joe Madison.
The other Joe Madison, right? I kind of want to pivot into it a little bit because I want to talk about, combating porn addiction, right? Since we're kind of going into that space, right? Okay. We know that the porn industry is $1 billion. You got virtual women out here now. You can create your own AI, there's certain your chest, breast, whatever you can make the perfect woman online,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I'm saying here is that it has destroyed relationships. It leaves a person empty. These young men aren't courting anymore. They're not. But why would like you said earlier, well, I want to take you out and hang out with you. I can just go, satisfy myself and go
Yeah.
watch this quick movie or this quick, 2-minute video, and I'm back in business, and I'm going about
Yep.
my business, and that
Yeah.
becomes addictive.
That's right.
And now, when you get with someone, you can't even have, regular body actions
Yeah. Call it
because
what
your
it is,
mind
man.
is stuck on that
What's the
shit.
most affluent industry right now? One of the most affluent, especially in pharmaceutical, it's ED medication.
Absolutely.
And it's because
Absolutely.
we've conditioned our mind to have a phone in our hand or a screen in front of us, and that is sex. Your mind is incredibly powerful. No matter how little or much we each use it,
Mhm.
you are right on, Jamil. We are being sold something. It's a transaction. Everything in life, everything. I mean, I'm gonna get this tattoo on my neck. Everything in life is a transaction.
Yeah.
Don't ever doubt that. What are you giving for what are you getting? And if you're giving time, what are you getting for that time? If you're giving your arousal or you're creating this reward system where you're seeking something, what are you getting and what is it taking? Because I've got a guy that's a urologist and I interviewed him, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago. It's been a while. COVID messed up my timeline, but
Mhm.
it's been a while. And I said, let me ask you something. How many times do you see a 20 something come in here asking for, back then it was Viagra. It was the only thing
Yeah.
anyone ever called it. And he said, and he told me, and I said, now compare that to, I don't know, how long you been doing it? He said, 18 years. I said, go back 5 years. How much? Almost never. And I said, would you agree this is not a hardware problem? This is a software problem, literally and figuratively speaking?
Yeah. Literally. Yeah.
Your brain is like, no, that's not sex. Oh, she's not. I guess she's all right. But turn on that one where you got all the control. Turn on that one where if you don't like that, you can click this one. Turn on
Right.
that one where you can see something you would never see in real life. We
Right.
got 14-year-olds, 18-year-olds who are virgins, and that used to be something we're like, oh, wow, that's admirable. Okay. But they've had sex 7,000 times in their life because they're simulating a sexual relationship or
Right.
enacting out behavior.
That's
They're,
interesting. I never
that's
thought
it.
about it that way, right? They may
They
physically
are.
may have not done, but they're looking online, they're looking on their phones, they're scrolling on Instagram. I mean, they're looking at all kinds of stuff right now too, right?
That's
Now they
it.
have these broken like fire sticks they put for with the little Amazon, and you can get like the 7,000 and 8,000 channels. And of course, 500 of them are adult channels.
Oh yeah, of
No,
course, that's exactly right.
with no parental uh, blocking. It's insane.
It is,
It's insane.
and there's a rule of thumb that I talked about everything life's a transaction. Here's another one to remember for anybody listening. If the product's free, you're probably the product.
Yes.
Whenever you're watching something and downloading something and consuming something and not paying for something, if you're on social media and you see something and it draws you to click on this and then click on that because that drew you in sexually because you're a man and you're like, well, what's a big deal? It's just on social media. It's not a big deal. I can indulge in this. That click, that told them they like this and he's in this demographic and every one of them will like this. So
Mhm.
let's send it to everybody. You
Mhm.
wonder why we get things that we didn't look for, we didn't click on, but we
Mhm.
get it anyway. It's no difference for kids. I think the last Barna Group study, it's been a while. No, they have a new one recently. I haven't seen that stat, but before that, they
Mhm.
were saying that when kids are exposed, minors are exposed to pornography, the estimation is about 63% of them they weren't seeking it the first time they saw it. It was a click to this. And I have seen that firsthand in the work that we do. Now I've talked to men who are buyers, and sometimes I'm talking to monsters, and I mean it. There are just people that I'm looking them in the eye, and I can feel it. I'm just like, I want to
Wow.
get out of this conversation, but we need to
Wow.
get through it. But then
Wow.
there are ones that will tell me, yeah, I had a guy. Oh, yeah, this is kind of that point. I had a guy in one of our classes because we do an extended class and then we match somebody with an accountability partner to help them work through struggles. So we'll talk about that at the end. If anybody watching this feels like
Sure.
they
Yeah.
need help.
I got a question, as a matter of fact, for you too, Joe. This
Okay,
popped
I'll
up.
wrap this part up and we'll go right to that. This
Sure.
guy, I come to him and I say, is there anything you want to talk about the day you were arrested? And he said, no. Two other guys talked. He out of nowhere said, I had a babysitter when I was 15 and she molested me. He's not talking to anybody. He didn't talk. He wasn't saying Joe. He wasn't even looking at me, looking through me.
Mhm.
And I said, "Man, you want to talk some more about that?" And I'll just call him John. He didn't say anything. We move on, and he says, that happened again with a cousin when I was a little boy." It's coming back to him. He didn't think about this. And
Wow.
what ended up happening in his journey, we got to go with him for a few months. He was associating his acting out behavior sexually with his abuse that he experienced. And what I found out in that class is we added a question and we were evaluating. We had Rice University here locally in Houston evaluating our program. And what they found was almost 20% of the men who answered the question, "Have you ever been sexually abused?" answered it yes, and another 18% answered it, "I'm not sure."
Wow. They couldn't identify it. They didn't.
Yes. How did they get to that acting out behavior? What fueled that? It's not always seeking in this monstrous thing. It's many times and because that same person, they could manifest as a workaholic who is socially successful but empty. And it all comes back to alcohol, you name it, the acting out behavior. But Jamil, I want to bring it all the way back to we find ourselves struggling with an internal struggle. And as human beings, we don't want to feel that. And I've got
Mhm.
no end of options to dumb that down. So my acting out behavior will be drugs, alcohol, arguing, work, porn, whatever, right? Well, that acting out behavior will give me relief and distraction. And it's a pretty sure thing because I know how it makes me feel.
Right.
But once that wears off in 20, 30 minutes, where are you? You're right back in the shame cycle. You're right back in internal struggle. And so when we make decisions, so many times we're focused on the decision we're making and not why we made it. And that's where accountability, empathy, and vulnerability. We get men talking to men about empathy and vulnerability. And I'm not talking about you got to sit in a drum circle. That's up to you. You want to.
Right.
I'm
Right. Right.
talking about having that real talk like this forum.
Yeah.
That will be cultural
Well, see,
changing.
the thing about it is, Joe. Like I said, I always say this. This is we are the walking wounded,
Mm.
right? We,
Amen.
you know,
Sure.
we do not talk. We talk about everything under the sun, right? And that's kind of the reason for behind this platform, right? We talk about the job, we talk about the bonuses, we talk about the kids in college. But I can't come to you and say, Joe, I'm thinking about committing suicide.
Mm.
Joe, I got an addiction to porn.
Yeah.
Joe, I'm considering, taking all these pills. We
Mm.
don't talk about that, right? And
Mm.
and men, we're around the same age, and men our age are having heart attacks and strokes due to stress and committing suicide because we don't talk, we don't share.
Yeah,
And so by you coming on to Men Speaking Out today and sharing, some of the research you've done, the discoveries, the helping people through their journeys, and it's like you said, you've seen a few monsters in the mix, right?
mm,
As you're going through this is good awareness for the people listening that this is a real situation out here that exists and it can impact any of us. And a lot of us don't even realize that maybe a situation took place or happened sometime in our past as a youth or even for that matter as a teenager or even as a young adult that we turn it off because we don't want to think about it,
that's
right?
right. That's
Right.
right.
So with that being said, I gotta get to this question because if I don't, I know this individual is gonna wring my neck. So the question is, as a parent of a teenager, what measures can be taken to be proactive and not reactive?
Mm, yeah, it's a great question. And I would say most people's minds with that question would go somewhere that's not wrong, but it ain't first. And that is, let's lock it down. We got to lock down that. We got to put the right browser control. We got to have this and have that. We did that with our kids, but that wasn't the first part that we should have done. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of the first things we can do is that empathy and vulnerability. Now, I know that's not what men are used to hearing,
Mhm.
but hear me out. I've got 3 kids. And for about, I don't know, 7 to 8 years, I struggled with porn myself. This is well before I knew about trafficking. I was still in sales. I
Sure.
was doing it. And most of the time, I didn't think I was struggling. I was like, I'm a man. I like naked women. What's wrong with it? They're all right here. I just click on it. It's free. I'm not paying for this. I'm not supporting it. Well, yeah, you
Right.
are. They make billions on the back end of your
Yeah.
free clicks.
Yeah.
But what I had to come to realize was that although I was teaching my son how to be a man, how to take care of women, how to be a provider, how to respect them, how to honor them, do what you say you're going to do, don't say it if you won't do it, all those things. I was not talking about porn. I wasn't going to bring that up because super dad can't have that vulnerability.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
got to be the standard, and he then knows how to live up to it. But what he's going to find in life, Jamil, is that there is no such thing. And I'm just a failure. I'm not as good as him. I can never be my dad. And so whenever I watch porn or I struggle or I lie or whatever, I have already failed the standard. And in
Mhm.
doing so, what's the difference one more time? There
Mhm.
becomes a shame cycle that just really steals your true identity of who you are, your beliefs and values. And so the first thing I would say as a parent, and we do this exercise in our workshops, um, empathy, vulnerability, are a combination that your kid is not expecting to hear from you. They're expecting to hear, "I'm gonna snap that laptop in half, and you're gonna pay me for it if I see you on that side again." Right?
Right.
They're expecting to hear, "We're a Christian household. We don't do that. You know better." And while these are not like abusive ways to talk to our kids, what we don't realize is they're isolating and they're separating.
Mhm.
Instead of saying, "I'm not mad. I'd like to talk to you about why that was interesting to you because I know a lot about that, and I've actually seen things like that before that really upset me, and you're too important for us to go through that alone.
Right.
I want to talk some more about that. We can do that. Let's do that about 30 minutes after everything's cooled down, okay?" Or proactively, because you asked about proactive, that was reactive. Proactively is, I saw this podcast today, and this guy was talking about something I never really thought about, and son, I've never told you this, but I can't imagine what it's like to walk around with a smartphone at 16 years old. I would have destroyed myself.
Mhm.
And, and I want to talk to you more about that because you're too important for me just to let it slide. There's too much out there.
Yeah.
So you begin that conversation by saying, I would have destroyed myself. I would have made mistakes. It isn't about that fake standard. Your kid's not believing it anyway after a while. Finally, they're like, yeah, super dad, I see you doing this. I see you doing that. You think nobody's looking?
Right.
It's about that connection. It's speaking out as a man. It is being vulnerable in a way that is appropriate, of course, as a parent. But you can even follow that up with, I didn't have one of those when I was a kid, but I did have a very bad relationship with food. I was using food to supplement my own insecurities, and
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are things you can go to that are a real talk for kids, and then bring that to a point. But I realized it wasn't about the food or about the porn or about whatever. It was about the internal thing I was struggling with. And when I got help with that, I didn't need the other thing, and you
Right.
don't need it, and you're better than that. And I want to be with you in this process. Like that's one way of doing it. Um, that may sound complicated. I hope that it didn't, because it really is about leading with this empathy and vulnerability. Now, what did Reagan say? Trust but verify. He stole the
Yeah.
Russian the Russian phrase. Um, he said, "Trust but verify." I said, "I love you too much to leave you to this." So every once in a while, I'm going to come to you and say, "Hey, let me see your phone," and I want you to give it to me in a matter of seconds. You don't have to close any browsers, nothing, because if for some reason there's something on there, I want you to know that's a conversation starter. Now, this may sound crazy to parents, like that would never work. Neither will building a bigger wall. There is no wall big enough. And I can promise you this, you're not going to outsmart a kid with technology.
Oh, absolutely. Nowadays, it's part of their DNA, right? It's part of their anatomy, right?
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. And
You don't take them to a bowling alley and never teach them anything and just put up the bumpers. Like you teach them to bowl and then you put up the bumpers maybe, you give them a little help along the way. You don't
exactly.
just leave them on training wheels all the time. Those guards are not going to do the trick. It's about using the guards as a supplement because they chose it as a boundary and not a barrier that you
Mhm.
placed. Because their goal in life will be to get over the barrier that mom and dad placed.
Gotcha. Man, I tell you what, Joe, you got questions coming out the wazoo. I got another question for you real quick. It
Fire
says,
away. Let's
are
go.
there resources available for single mothers dealing with this issue with their young sons?
Man, whoever wrote that, thank you, first of all, for speaking for, I don't know, millions of people. We've got single moms. Both of my sisters were single moms for a long time. Talk about superheroes. Um, we had a mom come to us in a workshop, and this was in Katy, here, Houston suburb. And she came up and said, I came to this to learn about trafficking. And you talked about pornography. You talked about vulnerability. You talked about all this stuff. I never would have talked to my sons about this. I think I can now. Now, that was in a workshop. So we went through some things. But for whoever asked that question, you're representing such a bigger audience. And my answer would be back to that vulnerability. It's hard to talk about this as anyone. Let's get that right out front, right? If I'm talking to my son saying, look, you're going to cringe. I'm already cringing, but you're
Right.
too important not to have this conversation.
Right.
As a mom with boys, it feels like there's this great divide, but you know who your greatest protector would be if it came down to it? Those boys. And so remember, as you're talking to them, your perspective is something they would never understand unless you explain it to them.
Right.
Son, I need you to understand, I go to the grocery store and the same guy's on the same aisle 4 times in a row. I don't feel comfortable. Whenever I'm standing in line, I catch somebody looking at me in an inappropriate way. I have no recourse. I just want to get out of there. Like
Right.
being real about what it is to be a woman in our world that's hypersexualized, that's giving all this license to the person who's consuming, however they decide to consume, and none to the person who is being victimized. Is a strong word, but in some cases that's true. But if not, they're being minimized and objectified.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talking to your sons and saying, I was watching this podcast and there's this guy, he's just ranting going on and on. But one thing he said was, and just use that as an in, use it with that vulnerability. Because even though a lot of women, not all, I mean, more and more, the statistics you have there probably say it, more and more women are seeing pornography as a part of their consumption. And many times introduce them as a boyfriend, almost as a condition as a relationship. That's
I,
a different story.
yeah.
But getting to being a woman and saying your own vulnerabilities, you know, it's hard to be a woman. Um, I use food to cope, or this, or my mom drank, and I wish she would have gotten the help she needed. There are things that you can say that are very real, but are age appropriate.
Sure.
And in doing that, you bring it back to that human level.
It's interesting too because I've got a data. Once again, I'm an IT guy in data. It says percentage of U.S. adults between the ages of 18 and 35 who consume porn on a weekly basis, and it says for men, the percentage of U.S. adults now. So we're talking about millions and millions of people. 87% of men
Yeah.
consume, and 28.5% of women. That is insane.
28.5% of women is the number that you don't see coming if you really stop and think about it. And this, again, is not a wag your finger, shame on you. Like, let's talk
Mhm.
about all these prude things. For the record, if you're watching this, I'm for sex. I like sex. Sex is good. Well, it's not about the feeling, it's about the fulfilling. And we as young people grow up in a culture that sells you feeling, whatever that is, caffeine in your drink, cannabis in your cigarette,
Right.
alcohol in your drink, whatever. Get the feeling because you'll come
Right.
back for more. Pornography is free, consumable in your own home, in privacy. You get a
Hmm.
rush. Did you know that it lights up the same parts of your brain that cocaine does? Did you know that the euphoria and the pleasure centers in your brain that are activated are the same that activated with drugs? These are the same results that you're not paying for, and you can justify so much more easily, and you would never consider addiction. So those statistics that talk about these demographics, you said 18 to 35, right?
Yep. 18 to 35. Hmm.
So why do you think it's 18 to 35? Because what did we talk about all day so far? Children being exposed to this, children watching growing up. The reason it's 18 to 35 is because if you were in a state where Pornhub was still operating, thankfully in Texas, we shut
Hmm.
them down because they wouldn't do age
Oh, it
verification.
shut down. It shut down Indiana too. It shut it down here.
Good,
Yeah.
good. And so
Yeah.
you can't pull up their report. But they
Yeah.
like to brag about, and Pornhub and all these sites do, they have their metrics and
Hmm.
all of their pie graphs that say what people like and what they watch. Their age range is 18 to 90 or whatever. You know, they have to go all the way on
Right.
the spectrum. There's no there's no number lower than 18. And so you're telling me that your biggest demographic of viewers is 18 to 26 or 27 to 34.
Right.
I wish you'd be honest and tell me about that younger demographic because
Yeah.
honestly, that is one of the largest, if not the largest, viewing. Because as you're growing up, when we were younger, again, we're 52, where was
Yeah.
on this podcast
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to talk to my parents about sex. I don't want to know about that.
Oh no,
So
man. No.
I'm not going to them for it. Let me tell you, I'll tell you this in 45 seconds. Here was my sex talk, right? The talk. My aunt and uncle adopted me and my brother. We were driving to the mall one day. This was Sharpstown Mall back when that wasn't a life-threatening decision, which it is now. But back then, it was a cool mall.
Gotcha.
She just blurts out to this 15 and 13-year-old, "Y'all aren't having sex, are you?" While we're in the car, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, so uncomfortable, right? And then when I reflect on it, I think about that question that this mom asked about teen boys. She just probably was struggling with that for days to even get it out.
Hmm.
And it was awkward and difficult, but she did that. And then I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "No, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." We drive for another 5 minutes. She said, "But if you did, you'd wear a condom, right?" Like I share that because here's my sweet aunt saying that
Yeah.
with out loud. And in the next 38 minutes was the longest car ride of my life of silence. But it goes to the point of let's really talk about what's happening. And as a child, the average age of first exposure to pornography, and we were one of the first ones to really bring this stat to light, is around 9 years old.
That's wild. That is wild to me. And I'm not surprised though. I'm not surprised,
Yeah.
especially now with everything being so accessible in this space and how the smartphones and that, like you said, the algorithms and just thinking it's me watching having the phone, but it's my 4-year-old grandson, right? And as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, let me give him my phone to play a game on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Exactly.
Bing.
We
Yeah.
don't understand the crossover there. And that 9 years old, there's three things to that. One, it's horrible.
Mhm.
Two, we said the word average. So I'm no math major, but to get an average of 9, you've got to have some much lower numbers along
Yeah.
with some higher numbers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's sad. But thirdly, this is the part we are talking about. This is right at the heart of it, Jamil. This this dynamic is that a 9-year-old boy is seeing the graphic abuse of really, and even if we don't call it abuse, let's call it what it is, a power imbalance. Someone's being denigrated or
Mm.
objectified and
Yep,
used. There's no intimacy there. It's
yep.
not teaching them that there's love involved.
You're right.
And a boy at 9 years old with no sexual context, they don't know. They're not thinking about this stuff yet. I guess this is what it is to be a boy in a relationship. And is it any wonder that we see teen dating violence spike? And then the girl sees the same thing, 9 years old. Let's take it back to that age. I guess this is what I should expect in a relationship.
Yeah, it's terrible.
That's horrifying, and
It's
it is
terrible.
it is absolutely the accelerant that turns into the catalyst of a terrible relationship and not respecting ourselves and honoring ourselves in a way that we should. And then we wonder why the new reason for most divorces, and this is an older stat, and It came from divorce attorneys. 300 divorce attorneys saw this irreconcilable differences trend, and it was pornography or some sort of consumption, betrayal, trauma that one of them experienced and wanted out. And it's usually the wife, right?
Wow.
It's a timeline. We have a timeline that we always talk about because it's all connected. It's not one or the other. This led to that. And then I'm talking to you at 35 years old with handcuffs on and a felony arrest because your acting out behavior was never checked. There was never somebody back when you were 14 saying, no, man, this is not what it is to be a man. I know it feels good and it looks good, but this is so far short of who you are and who you're called to be. Let me tell you about my experience. That is trajectory changing if we do that.
I tell you, there's no honor amongst thieves, right? Especially in
Mm,
that space, right? So,
that's
so
right.
I got two questions for you before we cap it off, Joe. First of all, thank you very much. You've been a fantastic guest. I really appreciate that. I want to do a part two with you, because I want to dig a little deeper because I'm actually listening to your podcast and I get off of my podcast.
Take those notes and let's go, man. I'm ready.
I definitely appreciate you. The two questions that I have, my friend, are around solutions, right?
Yeah.
Or around or preventive measures, so to speak. So the question I have is that what resources can support systems? I'm sorry, what resources or support systems are available for those seeking help with this addiction?
Yeah, you said walking wounded earlier, and I like that because one of the things I say in our presentations, I'm talking to 120 men in about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to juvenile probation in about 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my message is going to be the same. In this room, there are two people. There's the helpers and there's the hurting. And sometimes we're the same person. Knowing that somebody on this podcast is going, I never knew that about porn. And you've got a choice to make. You can say, well, I'm glad I don't have that problem. Okay, I want you to add the word yet and then live with that and decide if you're comfortable with that risk. Because the people that we talk to, it's the escalation. Yeah, they were at a not yet moment too. This isn't about shame. This is about stopping, realizing your worth, your beliefs and values, and how this conflicts with that. And if you want help for that, there are a number of ways to get that. But for us, for example, we have a discreet, private connection called, if you email us, and we start with email because it can be hard to pick up the phone and say the things we got to say sometimes. So the email is defender@demanddisruption.org. Defender@demanddisruption.org. That email will come in, it'll be responded to, and you'll get to choose your method of engagement. I have people that I'll email back and forth with, or our support guys will email back and forth with for a month, and then they'll make the phone call. And others are like, no, I would like to call. They want to understand us a little more. And then what we do is we start to establish not right and wrong where we're judging what you're doing. What we're doing is evaluating why you're doing what you're doing and then helping you connect to resources. And that's the differentiator. Things that are in line with your beliefs and values, a support group that's online. You don't have to leave your house. A therapeutic process so that you can really understand, why do I do what I do? And that is something you can take with you for life so that your failover is healthy and not a failover into the negative acting out behaviors. And then we are working on something right now called Disruption University. This is a database where you can go in and, just like taking a college course or an online course, a training, you can go in and learn things about what pornography is, what it truly does to your brain. We've got 6 pilot episodes on right now on Disruption University. If you go check that out and create an account, it'll talk about that. And it becomes a bridge between you and the person you want to share that with. If you need that help, you can reach out to some of those resources, and then we can, of course, direct beyond that if there's more to it.
Gotcha. That's awesome. I'm also going to share that your email address as well in the description, so that way it will be out there in the universe, and those who want to take an opportunity to reach out and to share. Once again, there's no judgment here, right? This is about awareness and and about prevention and about solutions. So I want to make sure for everyone.
I just want to add one more layer to that, because the other thing that we do as human beings, I heard that, I believe that, that sounds important. But then we are in a 24-hour news cycle with 15-second increments. We're on to the next thing because that's life. I would love everyone right now to go and like and subscribe to our podcast. You're going to hear firsthand accounts of lived experience. A man who was a buyer, he talks about how he got there. Women who had been trafficked, How did they get there? And then
Yeah.
law enforcement we work with. You're going to get into the true understanding of cause and effect. But just backing off of that a little bit, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and that's Demand Disruption on both of those. And what you're going to see is that daily reminder, that daily tap on the shoulder, that daily lesson, like the whiteboard thing that's kind of taken off. People are sharing it because they never knew those connections. How would you? Maybe what you're passionate about is the homeless or something else.
Mhm.
It's got to be something that we allow to come to us in a good way. So redeem your social media account and not the other garbage coming at you.
Last question, Joe. Last question, Mr. Madison.
Yes, sir.
What strategies can individuals use to regain control and build healthier online habits?
hmm First thing I'll say is accountability.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean you go tell somebody right now,
Right?
but start taking stock. The Greeks have a term called oikos. What that is you've got a center circle, you got another circle, and you've got another circle. Out here is your acquaintances. These are your friends, and the core are your people. Who is it you call when you need something? Who is it you take the call when they need something? Who are your trusted people in your life?
Hmm.
Consider that. Now, if you have those people, keep that in mind. The beginning of the resources is to try to understand the issues that you're going through and why you do what you do. So
Hmm.
much of this is generational. You didn't choose it. It's not your fault, but it is your problem.
Hmm.
And it being your problem means, how can I get education? How can I get help? Even
Hmm.
if you don't think you have a problem, but you want to know more about this, some of the resources from us, there are others online that are excellent. You can email us at Defender, even if you're not struggling with pornography or buying sex or whatever that is. There are resources that begin connecting you to lifelong learning and ways to not only help yourself, but create a generational legacy of leadership. We talk about legacies like we're leaving somebody a house or property or money. We've got an equation that we talk about, and it's something that I came up with a few years ago. And I'll tell you, it came from the Lord. Okay, I kept hearing it. I kept hearing these words, these words. I'm trying to think of them. And over a course of probably 8 months, I just wrote this down one day and I said, your identity plus your purpose is going to equal your legacy. If my identity is one where I have let myself get into some things that are not in line with my beliefs and values, then my reward seeking is going to develop my purpose. I'm going to seek those things that aren't good for me, and
Hmm.
my legacy is going to be diminished. I won't be impacting people in a way that gives life. I'll be taking some. If we have clarity in our identity, who we are, what we believe,
Hmm.
for me, it's my faith, but it's also the people that I choose to invest time with. You could spend time or invest time, they're not the same thing.
Hmm.
Whenever I get into that identity, my purpose changes. My purpose of what I'm seeking changes, and my legacy is different. My kid sees that. My kid sees transparency, but also correction and having trusted people in their life that they can talk to. You can model that for your kid, they can overcome some incredible things.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. Joe, Mr. Madison,
It's 55.
I'm honored, my friend. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on to Men Speaking Out, and really talking to Reveal. Right, that's you really did. You talked to Reveal today, and you captured some raise some eyebrows, folks asking questions, engagement. That's very important because I want to make sure that we're putting things out there in the universe that are going to make a difference and they're going to help people navigate their lives. Life's already challenging enough, right, with everything else going on. And so, this is interesting because I said to myself, what am I going to do differently for the podcast this year? What does 2026, what does Men Speaking Out look like in 2026? Well, Men Speaking Out in 2026 is to bring people online and have engaging conversations that are going to help people to the next step, the next level, and get them to the finish line. And that's what we're going to do. And we ain't going to cheat by doing it. We're going to
No.
run that race. We're going to get
Yeah.
in shape, and we're going to complete what we started. And I guarantee you, my friend, it's a beautiful thing to have you in January because we got a whole because you're coming back and coming back and coming back. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you very
I'm
much.
grateful for the opportunity and to talk to another man who's speaking out in a way that reflects integrity and encourages others to do the same. That's at the core of how we beat trafficking. It's at the core of how we change our society. And it's at the core of how we leave a legacy for somebody else in a way that transcends all of the garbage that we're going to be distracted with in life. It's not easy being an organization that fights trafficking by focusing on demand. And the truth of the matter is, people aren't reaching for their wallets. They think, oh, good, y'all work with buyers, but they don't understand if you can stop a buyer, you're stopping 7 to 10 buying activities later in their life. So if you feel a heart to support us, please go to our website, demanddisruption.org. You can find the donation link. We would love the support.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you, Jamil.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate
I'm fired
you.
up, man.
Hey, you fired up? I am too. I appreciate you, Joe. I appreciate you. I really do. Take care, my brother.
Bye.
Bye.